Hey people, it's time! Welcome to the Tribe, a space created for us by us. I'm your host, Fatia, and I am so glad you're here.
Hello, my people. How are you? I hope you are all okay, whether you're alone or with your loved ones for the holidays. I know that time of the year can feel a little bit hard for some and for so many reasons, so know that I'm thinking of you. As the year is coming to an end, I wanted to close the season 1 of the Tribekin. Yeah, it was a short season. We started halfway through the year, but a lot of content is coming in 2026, so stay tuned. I'm especially excited to debut the Tribekin Dinners in a cool 4-episode podcast series where I invite guests to have open conversation about subjects that matter, the global Afro diaspora, plus a lot of other new stuff coming your way. So, to close this season 1, I wanted to talk about a celebration birthed in the African American community, Kwanzaa. And it's celebrated each year from December 26th to January 1st. So happy Kwanzaa, everyone! I decided to celebrate it this year for the first time because I love what it is and represents for the community. Now that I have a 5-year-old, I thought this would be a wonderful way to introduce him to these types of cultural things. And I'm going to tell you how this became a celebration in the Black community in the US, what it represents and how it is celebrated, and also why I think it's important. Kwanzaa was created in 1966 by Dr. Maulana Karenga, activist, professor of African Studies, and author, in the aftermath of the Civil Rights Movement. Born Ronald Everett in 1941 in the United States, became a prominent figure during the Black Freedom Movement in the 1960s. Leader of the U.S. organization, a Black cultural nationalist group in Los Angeles, the U.S. stood for Us Black People, emphasizing cultural identity, African value, and community discipline. The organization focused on African-centered education and language, especially the Swahili, cultural pride, rituals and symbols, and building community institutions rooted in African values. What sparked the creation of Kwanzaa was an event that took place in Los Angeles, the What's Uprising. On the evening of August 11, 1965, California highway patrol officers pulled over Market Fry, a young man in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles. What should have been a routine traffic stop quickly escalated. Fry was arrested, his mother arrived at the scene, a crowd gathered, and it spread quickly that police had beaten Fry and his family. In a community already strained by poverty, unemployment, housing discrimination, and aggressive policing, that moment became a breaking point. For the next 6 days, Watts was engulfed in unrest. Fires burned, businesses, buildings, police and residents clashed. By the time order was restored, largely through the deployment of National Guard, 14,000 to be exact, 34 people were dead, thousands were injured or arrested, and entire blocks were left in ruins. But the What's Uprising was not random violence. It was the result of systemic neglect. Despite living in one of the wealthiest states in the country, Hollywood and stuff, many Black people from Los Angeles were shut out of economic opportunity. Jobs were scarce, schools were underfunded, housing was segregated, and the LAPD, under Chief William Parker, was known for its hardline, militarized approach to policing. In the aftermath of Watts, many Black activists began asking a deeper question: how do we rebuild not just the neighborhoods, but identity, culture, and unity? One answer came the following year. In 1966, just 1 year after the Watts Uprising, Karenga created Kwanzaa. But as Black communities began organizing around culture, self-determination, and political power, they were met with intense government resistance. By the late 1960s and early 1970s, Black political organizations, most notably the Black Panther Party, along with groups like the Nation of Islam or other Black liberation movements, were increasingly viewed by the federal government as threats. J. Edgar Hoover, head of the FBI, said it himself in 1969, quote, "The Black Panther Party, without question, represents the greatest threat to international security of the country." Under the president then, Richard Nixon, this perception hardened into policy. The FBI, through its secret COINTELPRO program, illegally and actively targeted black political organizations. Leaders were surveilled, harassed, arrested, discredited, in some cases killed. Informants were planted, letters were forged, false information was spread, internal division were intentionally fueled. The goal was clear: to disrupt, to discredit, and destroy black movement before they could build lasting power. This repression was not a coincidence. Let me read you a passage of a book of K. Magoon, Revolution in Our Time. Before Nixon's election on November 5, 1968, not a single Panther office had ever been raided by police. Within a few months of his election, multiple offices were raided. Perhaps the president-elect's law and order campaign emboldened law enforcement agencies directly or indirectly, empowering them to push back against black organizing. So to put you in a context, Nixon was elected president of the USA in 1968. He's now known for the Watergate scandal, where he and his administration were caught illegally spying on political opponents. But what's less talked about is how black organizations were also targeted. Because of this targeting, the Black Panther and other black organizations were constantly under pressure. Offices raided, later harassed, programs disrupted. Obviously, in this climate of repression and surveillance, division grew within the black community, making it harder to stay united and focused on collective goals. During that period, internal violence and authoritarian practices within the US organization were reported too. In 1971, Karenga was convicted and imprisoned for assault and false imprisonment involving members of his own organization. He served time in prison before being released in the late 1970s. After his release, Karenga distanced himself from militant organizing, returned to academia, and went on to build a long career as a professor and a cultural theorist. While his past remains controversial and painful for many, Kwanzaa itself has continued to exist. So let's go back to Kwanzaa. Born out of a need for cultural grounding, dignity, and unity for black people in the US, it was at first brought as an alternative to Christmas for black people, but this statement was later denied. It has nothing religious, you will see once I give you the principle. It is more of a cultural thing. Rooted in African harvest tradition, the word Kwanzaa is Swahili. It comes from Matunda ya Kwanza, meaning the first fruits. Dr. Karenga developed the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles at the heart of Kwanzaa, inspired by African tradition and philosophies. So here is the setup, the traditional one. You have the mkeka, the mat, placed at the base. It represents the foundation, our history, traditions, and ancestors. Then you have the kinara. It's a candle holder. It holds 7 candles. It symbolizes our roots and the importance of staying connected to them. Then you have, of course, the 7 candles, Mishuma Saba. You have 1 black candle at the center, represents the people, the black people. Then you have 3 red candles to represent the struggle. And then you have 3 green candles for the future and hope. You also have Mazao, the fruits, vegetables, represents the harvest and the result of collective labor. Then you have the Kikombe cha Umoja, the unity cup. It's used to pour libation. It simply symbolizes togetherness and shared responsibility. In French, we say libation. I think in English it's libation or libation. I don't know. Then you have Muhindi is the corn. 1 ear of corn for each child in the family. So it represents the children and the future. And then in the end, you have the Zawadi, the gifts. Usually it's given on the last day. They are meaningful and often educational or handmade. It's more to honor the effort and growth rather than just consumption. So you celebrate Kwanzaa during 7 days. Each day is a focus on one of the 7 principles. It starts every December 26th, right after Christmas. So let's go over each one of them. You have December 26th, the first day, and it's for Umoja. Umoja means unity. Burn the black candle. So it's to strive and maintain unity in the family, the community, the nation, and race. I checked online if people had example of action to do on each day, and a great tool that you can use is the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. Smithsonian's, yeah. I was taken aback for a second. I was like, wait, Ilaipo, P613, isn't this connected? If you know, you know. Scandal fans only. But yeah, no, jokes apart, it's an incredible resource. If you want to know what to do, what action to do in particular, you should go check it out. The website stated that we could share a meal or call a longtime friend to show that we care, reinforce unity, and discuss on the topic. And that's what I did. Then you have day 2, December 27th, and it's Kujishagulia, self-determination. So you light a red candle, and it's to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Naming ourselves instead of accepting labels imposed by history, racism, or society. Speaking for ourselves, like telling our own stories. Choosing our values. You know, it's not just surviving within systems that weren't built for us. And deciding who we become as people and as a community. In daily life, self-determination can look like teaching your children the history with pride.
I just said, what was your country? And Africa is?
A continent, but I love my continent.
You love your continent. I love that. Okay.
What about you?
Choosing how you live, love, create, and work. Building traditions that reflects your values. Refusing narratives that shrink or stereotype you. Day 3, you have Ujima, collective work and responsibility. You light your first green candle. It's to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems, to solve them together. What affects one of us affects all of us. I recently discovered Substack, and follow me on it, by the way, the Tribekin podcast, and I love it. Recently, I had to recommend the work of Sintrade W, a writer that I really like. And he had an essay that resonated with me, and I felt compelled to share it. The essay is called, Who Are Your People? And it states that it is important to know your people, name them, and to then stand with and for them every time. It's an act of love and a lifelong commitment. And I think that is exactly what Ujima is. Then on the 4th day, every December 29, you have Ujama, cooperative economics, to build and maintain our own shops and other businesses and to profit from them together. In other words, for us, buy black as much as we can. It can be like promoting black businesses, artists, or authors that make a difference in our communities. Then you have Nia, it's the 5th principle. And it's to make our collective vocation the building and development of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Nia is purpose. So it's about finding your purpose and helping your community grow and thrive. My Nia, for example, is the Tribekin, which I hope will do nothing but connect us across the globe and love each other more. Then you have Kumba, creativity. It's to do as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial that we inherited it. It's like to create intentionally for the good of all the community. This principle invites us to use our talents, ideas, and energy to leave our community better than we found it. You create in the service of the community. And after that, we've practiced Kumba on that day. It's usually December 31st. Then we come to Karamu, the feast. It's the celebration of the last day of Kwanzaa. It's a shared meal, a time to honor our ancestors, celebrate our achievements, reflect on the principle we've lived over the past week, and just celebrate, honor ourselves, and celebrate each other. It's an act of love for our people. And the last but not least, Imani, faith. Is to believe with all our heart in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, our ancestors, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. So you light the last candle as a promise to trust in our community, to honor our culture, our ancestors, and to refuse Afro-pessimism. It is so beautiful. I truly believe that Kwanzaa is important for the global Afro community because it gives us a chance to connect to our roots, our values, and to each other, no matter where we are, where we live. It doesn't matter if you're from the United States, the Caribbean, Africa, Latin America, or Europe. The principle of Kwanzaa speak to our shared history, our shared struggle, and our shared victories. And as I said earlier, it's not about religion. You don't need to belong to a particular faith to celebrate it. It's about identity, community, and intentional living. It's about teaching ourselves and future generations the importance of unity, purpose, creativity, and collective responsibility. And I believe these values are essential for our community everywhere in the world, especially when we understand how divide and conquer has been used against us ever since. For me, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa are more than a celebration. They are like a framework for resistance, if I can say that. It's a way to remember who we are together, and it's the first act of resistance that we can have against you know who. Kwanzaa is still not widely known or celebrated, not even in the US. Some people have told me like they thought it was a Jewish celebration, probably because Hanukkah also happens in December. And that alone shows why Kwanzaa needs to be better understood. Anything that brings us closer as a community and celebrates unity is never a bad thing, especially for us given our history. I repeat myself intentionally. I know it's not easy. There are tension, disagreements, and small fights between different Black and Afro-descendants groups. Sometimes it's about origins, where things really come from. I've seen people criticize Black American while at the same time getting offended when Black Americans don't want to define themselves only as African, as if they should deny their own identity and the history that was deliberately erased from them. We use stereotypes created by society in order to diminish us against other ethnic groups of the diaspora. Here, I think that Kujishagulia, self-determination, help. We boycott African hair salons out of pride and resentment towards one another, and both sides carry responsibility. Yet we fail to boycott big brands that openly and proudly insult us as a people. This is where Umoja, Ujima, and Ujama are needed. Unity instead of fragmentation, collective responsibility instead of selective outrage, collective economics instead of constantly funding those who disrespect us. These principles call us to look inward, not to shame, but to realign. Because resistance begins with how we treat each other in front of the whole world. And it's this constant debating and fighting over identity that keeps us from moving forward, whether together or each on our own. What's painful is that this division often benefits a broader system, one we don't even need to name, that again already sees us all as the same and treats us accordingly. Take the Yoruba people, for example. A Yoruba person from Benin should be celebrated as Yoruba by their people, whether they live in Nigeria, Benin, Cuba, or Brazil, without fights, without competition, without division, exploring over borders that were imposed long after our cultures existed. The culture is older than the lines on a map, and I've witnessed an intense debate about it not so long ago. Again, the same applies across the diaspora. Caribbean people are Afro-descendants, but they have built their own identities, and that deserves respect. We all come from a larger shared group, but each of us also belong to smaller groups shaped by history, geography, and often cultural mixing. That reality doesn't erase our connection, it deepens it. It's a strength now. You can go to places in Colombia or Puerto Rico where people proudly honor their African roots, but they cannot deny their Colombian or Puerto Rican identities as well. And that's completely normal. Centuries of distance, resistance, and cultural blending make that inevitable now. Unity doesn't mean sameness, as I said in the first episode, but it means respect from one part to another, from one ethnic group to another. You can call it Delulu, but I think that instead of, we should acknowledge, recognize that the world continues to make life difficult for us, for all of us, wherever we are, and saying, all right, let's unite. Instead of doing this, we turn on each other. For me, Kwanzaa is deeply tied to the work I'm doing with the tribe kin. This project is my way of doing my part to celebrate the global Afro community across borders and languages, to share culture, celebrate each other, and strengthen the bonds that sometimes get lost in our daily lives. Kwanzaa reminds us that even if we're physically apart, even if we are not a monolith, we can still practice connection, solidarity, and care by honoring these principles through the tribe kin, we are saying our community matters, our culture matters, our differences are a blessing now that they're here, and our love and support for one another is not limited by geography or religion. It's a call to show up, to celebrate, and to build something lasting so that the next generations, my son, your daughter, your little sister, your little brother, can inherit a stronger, more united global community. Kwanzaa offers us another way, a space to pause, reflect, remember that our strength has always been collective, and I can only hope to do a small part of that with the tribe kin, creating spaces where we connect, respect our differences, and remember that we are stronger together. I love you. Happy New Year and happy Kwanzaa.